It begins by talking about the Enron bankruptcy. The source for this article is called The Free Market. It's published monthly by the von Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama. If the Enron bankruptcy proves anything, it is that there are sinners in all walks of life and that the market economy provides mechanisms for rooting out and punishing systematic liars. Now, here's one thing that's important here. A lot of people might have listened to my previous lectures defending capitalism, and they've been thinking, well, what does Nash and capitalism have to say about those bums, those crooks at Enron, all right? Well, you just heard a colleague of mine tell you that if the Enron bankruptcy proves anything, it is that there are sinners in all walks of life and that the market economy provides mechanisms for rooting those sinners out and punishing systematic liars. Capitalism can take care of itself. Those who clamor for Congress to do something, Democrats or foolish Republicans there, those who clamor for Congress to do something to assure that this kind of thing will never happen again are delusional if they think Congress has the ability to legislate away sin or otherwise improve on the market system of profit and loss. Such delusions are a testament to the successful brainwashing of generations of public school students who have been taught to worship the God of the state and to look to it to solve all of life's problems. I'd say our course so far has helped prepare you for that sentence right there. Now let's keep reading. Accounting fraud. Now, Enron is all about accounting fraud. Accounting fraud at Enron is such a big story because it is so exceptional. Only once in a blue moon does a major corporation destroy itself in this way. Enron committed suicide. In contrast, accounting fraud is an inherent feature of government. It isn't businesses that usually engage in government fraud. It is government that does it. Well, let's keep reading. I like this. There is no such thing as real accounting in government, of course, since there are no profit and loss statements. There are only budgets. And I laugh. I read this stuff for years and then I forget how simple it is to understand the truth. You don't have profit and loss statements in government. You only have budgets. And budgets don't mean a thing. Consequently, there is no way of ever knowing in an accounting sense whether government is adding value or destroying it. All we know is that the budget grew by a certain amount for some ostensible purpose, right? Do you pay attention to the government of the federal, the budget of the federal government or the state of Florida, for pity's sake? And government is constantly lying to the public about how much of the public's money is being spent and what it is being spent on. As Gene Epstein has reported in Barron's, that's a business magazine, during the Clinton administration, vast sums were transferred from the Social Security and Federal Highway Trust funds to the budget so that Clinton and the Republican Congress could take credit for balancing the budget. All you did was play a game. You moved the money from here to here, and everybody thought the budget had been balanced. Any corporate CEO who raided his employees' pension fund and put the money in the company coffers so that the bottom line would look good and he could earn himself a fat bonus would end up in prison. The federal government practices what it calls baseline budgeting, whereby federal agencies announce that they wish to increase their budgets by, say, 10% a year, and if they only increase them by 5%, that is called a 5% budget cut. That's true. It's a budget cut, because we're spending only 5% more instead of 10% more. There can be no better example of accounting fraud than calling a budget increase a cut. The General Accounting Office, Congressional Budget Office, and other federal agencies also use static analysis when analyzing and reporting to the public on tax policy changes. That is, they assume that taxation has no effect whatsoever on economic behavior. So we have a $10 trillion economy and impose a flat 75% income tax. These authoritative sources will announce that the IRS expects to collect $7.5 trillion in revenues each year, ignoring several hundred years of economic theory and practice. In other words, you have a 75% marginal income tax rate, and people are going to change their behavior. Some of them are going to kill themselves. Others are going to move to find a non-socialist country in the world. Others are going to move to, well, they might even move to Cuba, for crying out loud, because even Cuba wouldn't do that. Perhaps the biggest accounting scam perpetrated by the state has to do with various governmental off-budget enterprises. As James Bennett and I wrote in our 1983 book, Underground Government, for well over a century, federal, state, and local governments have responded to citizen demands for tax, expenditure, and borrowing restraint by paying lip service to the demands, while at the same time setting up the subterfuge of off-the-books government enterprises. At the state and local levels of government, there are thousands of government boards, authorities, special districts, and other entities that issue non-voter-approved revenue bonds for everything from dormitory construction to small business loans. Taxpayers never get to vote on the issuance of this debt. The expenditures of these entities do not appear on governmental budgets, and their activities are largely shielded from the public. Consequently, they are responsible for some of the most spectacular bankruptcies in state and local government history, such as the $2.5 billion default of the Washington State Public Power Supply System, called WHOOPS. Oh, what a great acronym, WHOOPS, in 1983, and the near bankruptcy of New York, both city and state, in the 1970s. Well, if anybody else is interested in the rest of this great article by Mr. DiLorenzo, it's in the journal Free Market, April 2002.